around it.
All of it began the first time some of you who know better and are old enough to know better let young people think that they had the right to choose the laws they would obey as long as they were doing it in the name of social protest.
I want to be clear in how I characterize this. This is mostly a protest. It is not generally speaking.
Okay, welcome back to episode 2 of OK Boomer. And it is I, Boomer, and my fellow compatriot, Tonto.
Hey, how's it going?
Okay. God, so much has happened over the last week. We might have to do these shows more often. Actually, we should. We should have recorded, because we had a good talk a couple nights ago.
We did have a good talk, and we could have pulled so much audio clips of our conversation from that talk, because I think we talked for a good 2 hours.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we could have pulled so many audio clips from that to segment in here.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there was just so much news over the week.
It's so constant. There's so much going on with the convention.
We had a lot of comments on the DNC convention.
I think it was Obama last night, his wife the night before.
Yeah, it has to be him talking tonight. I really did not pay attention tonight. Yesterday I didn't watch it just because it was hard watching it the second night.
We'll move on to our first story. I'm going to try to be more compressed this time around. And and the link that we had going was, it was announced on, this is through Yahoo News, that you had brought this link up. So it comes out of LA Times, and the attorney for Minneapolis police say that he'll argue George Floyd died of an overdose and a heart condition. And the reason this became news is because the gag order got lifted over everything. That's why you haven't heard from anybody on any side of the case. You haven't heard the attorneys trying to defend the police officers. You haven't heard the prosecute. Well, you actually have heard the prosecution. They just didn't talk about specifics. Then, of course, you got the city council trying to defund the police, everything. And what's kind of interesting about the whole George Floyd thing, because we really didn't go into that on episode 1, is that the body cam footage came out. And it immediately made a sea change in, like, the general populace. Because he was obviously high the whole time. He was obviously really on a lot of things. And he was requesting to be held on the ground. He constantly was saying he couldn't breathe. I believe we know from pathology that he had COVID. So not only is he on a lot of things are going on with him, he also seemed like he was having an anxiety attack. So there's a lot of things, and when people saw the video, like I said, there was a sea change. Either you had, or a divide for sure. You either had people like, well, hold on a second, or people were like, oh, that don't matter. That don't matter at all. And it matters because the context shows they didn't just brutalize this guy. He was going through some shit. Now,
he was going through some shit.
I don't agree with the officer Chauvin and kneeling on the guy and everything like that. I definitely, and I think pretty much universally, everyone kind of condemns that. But it wasn't murder. And we're talking like the legal sense of murder. You know, you have to have premeditation, and you have to take that action, and it's got to be from beginning to end. This is a planned event. I don't know that he planned to kill the guy. So my stance on this is always, well, once I saw the video for sure, I wasn't sure about it ahead of time, is manslaughter or negligent homicide. And that'll only be on the officer who is kneeling on him. because they're trying to charge all 4 of these dudes.
Correct.
And you just can't, there's going to be an argument about duty.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not on top of them, you're not going to get on top of them, nor are you going to interfere with the officer doing what at this point he had seniority. One of these cops that they're trying to take down for murder, I think he was a new hire.
Actually, all of them were new hires, except for the dude who was on.
Right. So
the dude's neck.
You're fresh out of academy or whatnot. Are you gonna challenge your senior officer on the scene? Probably not.
You listen to the dude who has seniority. All those guys, every single one of them had less than a month. I think they said that all of them had less than a month on the job. From what I remember, I can't remember. I know it was less than 3 months altogether. I think all of them had less than 3 months on the job. The dude who had the knee on it was Chauvin, was his name?
Yep.
Yeah. He was the senior officer on deck. So, I mean, he was the only one there. I think 2 of them, they were partnered up together. They didn't have a senior officer with them at all. They were 2 new hires put together, and then it was Chauvin and another new guy that were together. And because there was just 2 different groups that ended up being all put together, all 4 guys together, that ended up coming and getting George Floyd.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're brand new on the job, you listen to the top dog.
Right. I just don't
You
think
do
there
what
would
he
be the
says.
wherewithal. Like, here's the thing. Like, in the military, you take this oath that you won't, you have a duty to disobey unlawful orders. I mean, it's kind of thing that people talk about and whatnot. But guess what? If you're in the middle of something, you don't think that way because you're trained, at least on the grunt level. Like, I mean, we're talking, at least at the beginning, you're not some kind of operator. You're not some special ops dude. You are trained to follow a direction. You're trained to follow orders and keep completing that task because the completion of the task you're on is very pertinent to getting things done. And this is kind of the same thing. It's a kind of a, it's a police organization, but you're in a stressful situation. You will continue with your process in general, and especially like you've got this guy down, you've got a crowd forming, they're screaming at you, they're yelling at you. It hardens both sides when you're in a confrontation to stand fast. And I think I'm not trying to excuse them, but I think that's what's occurring. So on this article, this just came out today on the 20th, he's just making clear that his intent is to say, hey, there's obviously extreme amounts of drugs in the dude's body. He already had a heart condition, and this is what ultimately led to his death. Now, there are two autopsies that say the death was a homicide, which in terms of the medical terms, it's a caused death, right?
Right.
It is not like it's a conviction of murder. It is a status in which this life ended because it's meeting these circumstances. It's kind of like a scientific determination. This was a homicide. His life was ended because of actions versus natural causes. I'm sure they're going to have their own autopsy, or they'll use parts of all of these autopsies to sit there and say, look at these extreme amount of drugs. Is it likely he'll die, etc. So all of that said, though, what's really interesting about this, or what we should be concerned about this, is the fallout of this. Right now, this is expected. This is just this is the defense attorney. If he didn't defend these people, he wouldn't be doing his job. And defense attorneys are important, even if the party's guilty. Regardless, you need to be able to have a defense.
Correct.
I think it's likely most of these guys are going to get off. And Siobhan, I don't think he's going to go down for murder. Like I said, he might get some time. I don't think he's going to avoid
I don't see him
that.
getting completely off. I think he'll probably get some time for maybe manslaughter or like involuntary manslaughter.
Right.
But I don't think he's gonna get completely off. But the other officers, I don't see them getting any jail time.
Right. And you know what's
going
to happen?
They'll never be police officers again.
Which is fucked up. I don't
Right.
Because we have some, this isn't one of the stories, but in Atlanta, the dude who was fired for shooting that guy is suing for unlawful termination.
Right.
Because they skipped out of their procedure in what they would fire. There would normally be these steps. They skipped ahead of that. They fired him. Immediately, they're trying him for Capital One, which is honestly insane. I also don't believe he'll go for Capital One. It's going to be probably manslaughter. Shoot, I don't know, man, because the dude turned and pointed a weapon. Now, should he have thought... Here's the thing. The taser had already been fired. So, it wasn't a threat. But they're not thinking about that at the time. He also is running away from his car, so he also isn't a threat on driving over somebody drunk. So, should they have let him go? Yeah, probably. But he just attacked 2 officers, took a weapon from them, already used it once, and was attempting to use it again. And at that point, you're really asking for a lot of discernment from these guys. They should have had it, but murder one, no. No, he did not plan when he got on shift to kill a dude.
No.
He made the decision. It's probably a bad one. I don't particularly feel bad about him making that decision. That's my opinion. But he also probably will not go down. However, the benefit we have of our slow legal system is this will all probably happen after the election. It is extremely unlikely these dudes will hit trial before November. I don't know, but I don't think they will. I think they're going to keep it out. Oh, the other thing I want to come back on George Floyd. The big thing about this is if the body camera footage had been immediately released, after a week at the very least, because they got to look at it. I don't think you'd have the riots like you're having. I don't think it would have lit off the fire that it did. And this stuff was suppressed by Keith Ellison, their attorney general. Keith Ellison, in particular for me, is a known entity because he, at one point in his past, advocated, I'll see if I can find the screenshot of it. He advocated for a state to be given over for reparations, a black-only state at some point. And he's also fairly famous in the circles I run with for holding up an Antifa handbook. And he's the acting attorney general of Minnesota. So, I'm not a real big fan either way. And I think a lot of death and destruction could have been prevented if they had been transparent.
Right.
So, anyway, what do you think? You think he's going to be manslaughter and then we just hang tight for the repercussions?
Yeah, I think it's going to be manslaughter. But as of right now, I mean, I'm sure the defense attorney's going to get some death threats and everything and all that for his, his defense and all that.
Right. Yeah.
It's going to be ugly until, even though, he has to put up a defense. He can't just say,
I'm not going to do this
because
because
I give the guy to he has to give a plausible defense for this guy.
And
any defense attorney has to give a defense, or else he's not doing his job.
And any judge, any lawyer should be incensed on the idea that he shouldn't get a defense. If nothing else, the two videos that you saw where we all saw George Floyd die, and then getting the 20 minutes before that changes the damn story. Even though you saw what happened, and yes, I still think that was a tragedy, the full context matters. And I think in general, if you do what you're asked to do when you interact with authorities and they're alerted because you've committed a crime, you will walk away from that alive.
Yeah.
It's the deviations that scare everybody. Everybody wants to go home. The dehumanization of the police is not something I'm real comfortable with. But that was an important development, so I definitely wanted to talk about it, for sure.
Yeah.
But that's probably it for this week. Not nearly as fun feeling as last week was. There's just so much going on.
There's so much. It's a little information overload.
God, it is, dude. I'm almost burned out, and we got 70-something days left. 72 days left before the election.
Before the election.
Oh my God, it's gonna be crazy. But for you guys out there who have listened through this whole thing, and we will edit it down because there's a lot of we say silly shit. We're working on a different display coming
and I
up.
barely said anything this episode.
Oh man, I'm sorry.
No,
It's
fine.
It's all Tonto now. It's all Tonto. The next 5 minutes, I
have
saying
nothing to say.
Nope.
I have nothing to say.
I'm cutting it off. I'm just go. It's all you.
Oh, Canada.
Oh, you are gonna piss off one of our friends who I don't have a name for yet. I'm gonna call him
man.
Tim Bits. Tim Bits will be pissed. Mess up the Canadian anthem. They call it anthems there, right? They're not really a country.
Yeah, I'm pissing him off. We're gonna have to send him a bottle of maple syrup now just to apologize.
You want to offend him with maple syrup to Canada? That's
that's probably
what, you
true.
mean corn syrup?
Send him.
We'll send you corn
we'll send him corn syrup.
Yeah,
we'll send him some ketchup chips.
Yeah, do they even have an independence? Anyway, no, I'm not gonna go there. So the other thing I was thinking about is having non-sponsors. These people don't actually sponsor us, but I just got one today, which is Captain of Crush. It's one of those hand squeezers, but they're like industrial, dude. This is the trainer model that I just picked up, and it does 100 pounds of pressure is necessary to close these handles. That's the trainer. That's like one of their starters. They have the guide, the sport, the trainer. So I think the guide is like 60 pounds. The sport is 80. The trainer is 100. When you hit level 1, I think it's 130 pounds to close those handles. So I'm going to crush diamonds, man. Crush diamonds with this. All right, guys, that's it for this week. And Tonto, just such a verbose bastard. Could not shut up this episode. I promise.
I know.
Next episode. Anyway, thank you guys, and I hope you have a great week, and we will see you next Saturday. Peace.
Bye-bye.